Hello, my name is Ella Donnelly, and I've chosen to do my ReTeach project on gender inequalities. When we think of gender inequality, we often focus only on the barriers that women face. While removing these barriers is crucial, it's only half the battle. Men, too, are deeply impacted by restrictive gender roles, often suffering in silence from expectations to be dominant, unemotional, and self reliant. In this project, I will discuss how gender affects both masculinity and femininity, as well as analyze a few different studies and articles that explore how these issues affect us to this day. Gender for men. Masculinity intersects with race, class, and sexuality. Masculinity is also not just a natural identity, it is socially constructed and reinforced by powerful institutions. Through school, sports, and work, men learn that toughness, dominance, and emotional silence are requirements for success. This system grants privilege to some but causes harm to many. Recognizing these pressures men face help us move toward real gender equality. By creating space for vulnerability, emotional connection, and diverse expressions, we can reduce harm not just to women, but to men themselves. Gender for women. Femininity is also a socially constructed role that rewards women for being attractive, nurturing, and accommodating to men's needs. Women who conform too much are seen as weak. Those who resist are often punished. This double bind keeps women in a state of constant negotiation for acceptance and success. While traditional femininity can offer women protection or social rewards, it also reinforces unequal systems. Not all femininities are treated equally. Some are celebrated, while others are marginalized depending on race, class, sexuality, and other factors. Patriarchal bargains. Our textbook also explores the concept of patriarchal bargaining, which refers to the compromises women make in order to gain safety, respect, or limited power within a patriarchal society, even if those choices reinforce the very system that limits them. Women perform different types of femininity based on their context and perform these bargains with the patriarchy accordingly. Some types of these bargains include emphasized femininity, which centers on pleasing men, being physically attractive, modest, and nurturing. Another type is emphatic sameness, where women position themselves as one of the guys to directly receive some benefits that come with being a man. There are many other types of bargains women may make and are often shaped by the system we live in. These are not always free choices, rather, strategic responses to inequality. Encouraging men. Removing barriers from women has been the main approach, but that's only half the solution. The United Nations estimates that it could take almost 300 more years to fully close the gender gap if we keep progressing at current rates. Recent challenges, from the pandemic to new restrictions on women's rights, show that we can't afford to wait. Historically, gender equality efforts have focused almost exclusively on removing barriers for women. However, ignoring men's roles in the problem and the solution slows progress. One reason progress is slow is because men sometimes feel left out or even threatened by gender equality efforts. Achieving gender equality is not just about empowering women, but also requires engaging men, both because men are often seen as losing status with equality efforts and because traditional gender roles also harm men. Men must be involved as active participants and allies in gender equality movements. When men fear losing status, it's easy for them to resist change, but if we approach them with empathy and not blame, we can show that gender equality isn't about taking something away. Gender inequality differs across culture. In rural Nepal, women often navigate these strict patriarchal systems. Younger women, particularly daughters-in-law, oft accept limited power early in life, hoping to gain authority later when they become mothers-in-law. Young daughters-in-law have extremely limited financial autonomy. They typically have to ask permission to spend even small amounts of money. They face emotional strain and frustration, but often comply because they hope to eventually hold power later in life. Control over household money becomes a key site of this intergenerational negotiation. Older women manage household finances, giving them a sense of agency. However, they often reinforce the same restrictions on younger women as they once endured. True gender equality must address these intergenerational cycles and recognize that empowering one group of women does not always guarantee broader liberation for all. Women leaders in Kerala. In a study titled Bargaining with Patriarchy, researchers explored how women leaders in Kerala's health sector climbed to positions of power despite systemic barriers. Women in the study, ranging from ages 40 to 80, shared how they navigated education, career building, and leadership, consistently facing and bargaining with patriarchal norms at every stage. These women faced challenges like gender stereotyping, intersectional discrimination, and institutional biases through rules that favor male leadership. But through patriarchal bargains, like negotiating autonomy within restrictive institutional systems and aligning leadership styles to acceptable feminine norms to avoid backlash, they crafted leadership styles uniquely their own. Their journeys reveal that resilience required to navigate a world built against them and highlight how empathy, persistence, and community support are critical to dismantling gender inequality. In understanding their stories, we recognize the invisible labor behind leadership and the urgent need for structural reforms. Another major theme in the study was Kerala's specific cultural background. High female literacy and health awareness provide a unique setting compared to other regions. Encouraging empathy. One personal experience that really connects to this project is when I took a computer science class in high school. I found the material genuinely interesting and I was excited to learn. But being one of the few women in this class made me feel isolated and inferior, even when I was doing well. The environment often made it seem like men naturally belonged there and women didn't. Even though I enjoyed the subject, I decided not to pursue a career in computer science because I realized that constantly feeling out of place and underestimated would take a toll on my emotional well being and confidence. Learning about gender inequality, especially how expectations around masculinity and femininity shape opportunities, helps me see that my experience wasn't just personal, it was part of a broader pattern. It shows why empathy is so important, that without changing the way we support and include women, especially in male dominated fields, we lose out on so much talent and passion. Some reflection questions. How can we better support people who challenge traditional ideas of femininity and masculinity in our schools, workplaces, and communities? How do you think societal expectations of masculinity and femininity shape the opportunities people feel they can pursue? And what sort of patriarchal bargains do you think women and men still have to make today in order to succeed? And then these are my references. Uh, and then in conclusion, achieving gender equality isn't about fighting each other, but it's about standing together. When we replace judgment with empathy, we all we can all move closer to a better future for men, women, and for generations to come. True equality will only be possible when we listen, reflect, and act with compassion and courage. By encouraging empathy, sharing stories, and continuing these conversations, we can begin to break down these barriers and create a more equal and inclusive world for everyone. Thank you.